I am not Ginger Weaver, but I was asked to read what she has put down for her memories of Mr. Monk. 33 years of teaching. Where do you start? Let's begin in the old elementary school. Remember the old brick building where the rack now sits? Aged with spiral staircases, long halls, and spooky corners on a cold winter's day. That was where Mr. Monk taught his first 11 years. Later, when the new elementary was built, 5th grade was moved to the newly remodeled Ag building, and here he taught 22 additional years. Moving up to the 5th grade meant you were entering a land of grown-ups, where students had more than one teacher. Now you changed classes, ruled the fort, or became low man on the totem pole, depending on what building you were in, and had important things to do. Those of you over 35, remember that on the first day of school, you walked up the 3 long flights of stairs, your hands traveling along the smooth railing, around and around, up to the top of the building, to the last door on the right. Others would remember it as the first year in Buchanan Middle School and being directed to the long white building in the back. When you entered, the giant of a man told you to place your bag and coat on a hook in the coat room or out in the hall and go find your desk with a name tag carefully lettered and waiting for you. This was no ordinary man. In the eyes of a 5th grader, he was tall enough to pull down the movie projector screen without reaching. And he was big enough to hang Christmas decorations on top of the chalkboard rail without using a chair. His voice boomed. There was no doubt who was in charge of this room. But his eyes were kind and he had a big smile. When he laughed, you knew he really meant it. Everything was going to be okay. School was off to a good start. Mr. Monk loved riddles, mind puzzles, and illusions. There was always one written or posted on the chalkboard. Sometimes they were funny, but they were always designed to make you think. His desk sat at the back or the side of the room, and it was covered with inboxes, clipboards, paper clips, student workbooks, and social studies projects. This was one organized teacher. Do you remember those social studies projects? Some of you had him. They were everywhere. You would rush to sign up for the most desirable projects, drawing a portrait of Abraham Lincoln or Thomas Jefferson. But somebody else always got there first, right? So you would be left with designing maps, building model monuments or Conestoga wagons, and painting scenes of the Louisiana Purchase or the Battle of Gettysburg. Eventually, social studies projects would overflow the room. The walls were collaged with crayon portraits of explorers, generals, and presidents. Sugar cube or Lego buildings of the White House covered the counters. Barbie and G.I. Joe dressed like pioneers traveling across the prairie in a shoebox. And plastic Indians lugged with their modeling clay teepees through construction paper force. By the middle of the school year, Mr. Monk's room had developed a distinct aroma of homemade Play-Doh, tempera paint, and Elmer's glue. But what we really loved was when someone would bake and decorate a cake for their project because we got to eat it right after their oral report. Oral reports? The 5th grade students would stand up in front of the class and give their oral report, reading from a crumpled piece of notebook paper. Some spoke with confidence, enjoying the attention, while others spoke with a whisper. Those 2 minutes seemed like an hour, but when the moment was over, there was cake. Gleefully, Mr. Monk and that student would use a plastic knife and the spatula Mom had sent to school, and large pieces of the western frontier would be carved up and devoured by all. Now, that was a good social studies project.